So, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks ever so much for coming along to today's session, where we're going to look at Access Accountancy. So I'm going to spend just a couple of minutes explaining a little bit about what Access Accountancy is, and then we'll get on to the main event, which is for Lorraine to take us through her experience of running Work Experience Week last year. So without any further ado, get my slides moving. First of all, I'm sure people know this, but just a quick reminder, what is Access Accountancy? So it's basically a collaboration. It started with the Chartered Institute, ICAEW, but it's basically about widening access to accountancy as a profession, because as we know, because we're all working in it, traditionally accountancy has been a very sort of middle class profession, and we're not always as diverse as we can be in terms of socioeconomic groupings, in terms of male, female, in terms of all the different diversity categories you can come up with. So effectively, Access Accountancy was brought in as a way of getting people to have, from non-traditional backgrounds, to have work experience, and hopefully from there to get them interested in a longer term role in accountancy in the wider sense. So if we have a look at the partners for Access Accountancy, you can see that there's a lot of accountancy firms, small and large, and some public sector elements as well. So they're the organisations that are signed up to Access Accountancy, which is a charity that runs this. It's a partnership from all those organisations. So just in terms of the eligibility criteria, it's actually quite broad. It does look a little bit daunting when people see it, because there are lots of criteria, but they're all ORs. So effectively, someone needs to be at a state school or college, and then one of these four things needs to apply. And they need to be of the age groups year 10, which in old speak is fourth year, up to year 13, which in old speak is upper sixth. But you can specify within that age range, you can specify for a particular placement. So as long as someone's that age and going to a state school, then to qualify, they need to either have one of their main householders, so one of their parents, or effectively who provides the money in their household, needs to be from a lower socioeconomic background. I did actually try and look this up in detail yesterday. It's quite complicated, but it's kind of, there are some classifications. It's the kind of lower end. It's classifications 5, 6, 7, and 8 if you're interested in those. But it's basically people who are from non-professionals or have got unemployed, that basically in their family. So it is quite a broad category. I will try and put something easy for people to be able to identify on there, but you know what kind of group we're looking at there. And the important thing is that's when someone was age 14, although to be honest, we're not too strict about that necessarily in the east of England. It's really whether, if currently or at some point in their recent past, their main household earner is lower socioeconomic. So one of the other criteria, if they've ever had free school meals, been eligible for free school meals, obviously they might not have taken them up, or attended a school that does have over the regional average number of free school meals. So again, that does count in quite a lot of schools. If you think about the average, obviously around about half of them are going to be over that, or there would be the first person in their immediate family to attend university. So it is an or with all of those. So obviously for some people, they may fall into more than one category, but it is quite a wide range of people who would actually be able to be part of it. And just in terms of resources, so following the work of the wonderful Laura Lipman, who got a lot of this going within the NHS and in the east of England in particular, One NHS Finance has issued a guide which has got lots of this background information in here. I've put a few screenshots on there, and there are case studies from a lot of the organisations within the east of England contained in the guide, as well as an example itinerary and lots of tips on how to get started, etc. So that's enough from me. That's hopefully whetted your appetite a little bit. I'm now going to hand over to Lorraine, who's going to take you through her experience. I'm going to share the slide, so she's going to keep saying next slide, please. And I'll just pop back in at the end just to sort of talk a little bit about next steps. So over to you, Lorraine.
Thanks, Jane. And just as an aside, I would have hit two of those, the university and the lower socioeconomic background targets, whatever they are. but I can't count, so I never wanted to go into finance. But anyway, thank you for coming along today, and thank you for watching if you're watching afterwards. We held our first Access Accountancy Week last year in November. We wanted to hold it earlier in the year when others were holding it, but we just couldn't get ourselves together, so it takes a little bit of time. Do you mind taking a slide, please, Jane? Thank you. Another one. Thank you very much. So for me, the first stumbling block was getting it off the ground. We had the will, we had the buy-in, we had the approval. We needed more lead time to be able to get our connections together. So we didn't have a connection to the local schools or colleges. I don't live in the area, so I didn't have any personal connections, and no one in the team seemed to have any either. So what I did, speaking to Jane, we thought we'd reach out to the local authority. We tried direct mail as well, so emailing from websites. We emailed the schools, and then they put us in touch with careers leads, but it's a bit slow, if I'm honest. So what I would say is give yourself plenty of lead time. Don't shoot yourself in the foot and think, well, everyone's going in July, let's go in July. I went in November, it still worked. If you've got the will and you've got the approval, working on the connections for the first year, that was my major stumbling block, if I'm honest. I was determined to get this going. As I say, my background, would have totally let me get onto this program. And I'm really passionate about people having opportunities that they wouldn't ordinarily have. So my dad was a builder, but I don't know, he seemed to be quite well connected, and I managed to get a placement. It was only a couple of weeks, but in Deloitte, it was Deloitte Haskins and Sells back then. And it was opposite the Old Bailey. And this was a massive thing for me. It was a really huge company, great name at the time. Don't know how it is now. But even as a builder, he still managed to get me in there. So it's just, it used to be who you knew, whatever, but now there are other avenues. And I think this is a fantastic opportunity for people to just come along and just see what it's about, because there's not really much out there apart from doctors, nurses, porters and the like that you actually know what happens in the NHS. So can we, next slide, please? Thanks, Jane. I could not have done this on my own. It's big. There's a lot to do, and there's bits and pieces here, there and everywhere to pull together. So what I would do is say, get a team of doers together, not people who say yes, 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 turn up to a catch up and haven't done anything. It's not going to help you get this off the ground at all. So get some doers. If you've got some students, they're quite passionate about it because they're in the role. We've got a couple of placement students, and they were really helpful for this. I also had somebody who was on the graduate management training scheme who gave me some time, and she did all the things like got all the paperwork together, and then did some research on timetables and things like that. So if you can get 2 or 3 of you working on it, I would really recommend that. So get your dates, make sure it works for staff. You can get your people there on the ground, because it's not going to be you necessarily. It might be 12 different people doing slots, sessions, promoting stuff. So make sure that your week isn't a week when everyone's on half term or something, because that's just not going to work for you. And then the students, you have to check in with your local schools to make sure that it works for them. So if it's a week when, I don't know, they've got exams, or you just have to make sure that the week works. So once you've got your connections, check the week, get your team of doers, reach out to Jane. Jane was an amazing support for me for my first one. And I'd already spoken to Daryl about what he'd done at ESNEFT, and I'd already heard from Law. So Law was the one that switched me onto this and was really passionate about it. I can't be Law because she's just so much more intelligent than I am, but just her passion for putting this off was just really infectious. And that's where I really wanted to do this for NHS England. What we found was when we looked for work experience policies, we did have a couple, and obviously we had to use those. But what we found from talking to Law's team was they had some other stuff going on. So we had guardian consent. So we wanted to be able to use social media to promote the event during it and after it for future years. So we asked for guardian consent that we could use images, and obviously check that the students were happy to promote it on LinkedIn. And in fact, they absolutely loved it, because they then wanted to link in with all the people that they met, and it's built up their profile too. Confidentiality at work was obviously very key. Data security awareness. They had to do a health questionnaire, just to make sure that they had no assessment needs or adjustments that were required. Obviously, there's a procedures manual that they have to have a look at. So you need some policies and controls, etc., etc. The exec buy-in we had from the off. So just making sure that you've got top down, so that you can put the time in, you can get the people in the office to come and support the week, is really important. With our IT, we were not allowed to allow our students access to any live systems, and you're probably going to be in the same boat. But what we did was we got a couple of stripped back laptops, and we put some IT stuff on there, like all the Excel packages, and access to YouTube and things, so they could watch the King's Fund and things like that. So they will need some access, but they don't need their own profile or an NHS.net account or anything like that. It's very low key in terms of tech, but do have something around that they can use for doing some sort of psychometric tests and things like that. So a couple of them brought their laptops in themselves after day one anyway, so that they would have access. The main thing that I was keen to do was get a really broad and solid timetable. So I didn't want to fill it up too much. And in fact, I did fill it up too much, and that was the feedback I had. But I really wanted to have a broad spectrum. So I did a bit on an introduction to finance, King's Fund, the One NHS Fund, all about what the finance function is, some of the funding flows. And they'll come on to this on the next page, but honestly, they need a lot more. They need a lot more on NHS finance, from Department of Health to the patients, because it's really complicated. When I joined the NHS, 11, 12 years ago, I thought there was one NHS. I just thought there was one NHS. I didn't realise that there were so many different organisations within the one NHS. So having that broken down for them, maybe in pictures, like just having that funding flow, it's really important for them to get it on day one, because then everything else they learn about, such as we did some topics like procurement, which they absolutely loved, and they really ate up all of the information on procurement because they didn't realise how big the numbers were. There were also things like the supply chain and things like that, and that was one of the top topics that in their vote, after they're finished and they provide their feedback. They absolutely love the procurement slot. So I would definitely encourage it's finance, but it's slightly wider, because finance is a corporate function as well, of course, and we do internal and external stakeholders. So just think a little bit outside the box. It's not just about journals and filling in returns. So and then make sure you give yourself enough lead time once you've got your dates to start advertising. And we use social media now, because apart from targeting the schools with our contacts, using social media is the only way really you're going to switch these students on, because they don't read flyers, they don't read notice boards, they're all on the socials. So we have to be a little bit savvy, and I rely on Jane for that, who I think relies on someone else, but up the chain. So yeah, get your socials ready and start promoting. So onboarding. So I was a bit panicky because I wasn't getting much interest. We did have somebody, and their reasonable adjustment was they'd need a hotel for a week because they lived in Portsmouth or something like that. Unfortunately, we don't have the funding for that sort of reasonable adjustment. So we had to have somebody who could get to the office and be there every day, 5 days in the office, on their own steam. We paid for travel. Reasonable travel expenses is paid for, and I bought, we had 3 students, but I bought Tesco gift cards for each of them and put them through expenses. So they had £5 a day, all week on a gift card that they could just go and get their meal deal with. So that seemed to work for us. We're not in a trust. We don't have a canteen. So there's nothing else I could have done. I didn't think making them a marmalade sandwich and bringing it in would really cut it. So that's what we did. I'm sure you can find another way if that doesn't work for you. So being patient, waiting for those applications to come in. I don't know if you know, when you have your jobs out, there's a surge on the last day before you submit. And you think, why do you leave it to the last minute? But they do, they just do. So be patient, they will come in, I'm sure. And then the other thing I would say is communication would be slow. Once they're onboarded, or once they've done their application and you confirm that they're accepted, you send them the forms. And then you send them the forms and they have to get different links signed, etc., and make sure that they've got the contact details for their teachers. What are they called these? Anyway, teachers. And then their guardian forms have to be signed by their family or guardians. So they're a bit slow. Students can be a bit slow in returning all the necessary forms. They might need jigging along a little bit. What we did was we set up a Teams call. Once we'd had all 3 students confirmed, we set up a Teams call so that we could go through the paperwork before they had to submit it. So having your paperwork ready to go long before you've got your confirmed students is good advice, I'd say. Then the parental consent, obviously, for using photos is important. This is new for us, the FAQs. So this was suggested in the feedback from one of the students. It would have been helpful for them to have some links in advance and some information, what they wear, what the day is going to be like, what time can they finish, will they get breaks, what time, lunch, etc., etc. They just need a bit of basic information so that they can come in ready to go. So that is something I'm going to pull together. I'm very happy to share it, and that will be from our experience. Pretty basic stuff, but I think important for us to have a smoother onboarding process next time. So that was lessons learned for us. Housekeeping, day 1, it took me till 2 p.m. to realise that I hadn't told them about the fire regulation, that there wasn't going to be a fire drill that day, and where to meet if there was a fire bell go off, etc., etc. So I'm going to be much more regimented about that sort of thing. Otherwise, I will get in deep water. So just thinking about those sorts of things. Where's the loos? Where you can make a cup of tea, etc., etc., etc. And housekeeping as well. At lunchtime, we had an ante room to where they were working, and they sort of had their breakouts and had lunch and things like that in there. They turned YouTube on the TV. I didn't even know you could do that on our TV, but they've turned YouTube on. I don't even know what they were watching, but I just thought I need to put that in the housekeeping. Don't put the YouTube on unless it's King's Fund or something related to the actual topic, and whatever it is you're watching. I don't know. I have no idea what it was, but it wasn't appropriate. It wasn't inappropriate, but it wasn't appropriate for the experience that they were here for. So all of those things in housekeeping, I think, helpful. Having one point of contact is really important. Get their mobile numbers. If they're going to be late, they can contact you. So all of that stuff just goes in the FAQs or the housekeeping. The last thing to say is just remember they're students. They don't know about work. They don't have experience, generally speaking, about turning up on time or contributing to start with. They're pretty quiet as well. Have I got another slide, Jane? I think I do. Here's our timetable. So I did build in some downtime, but I don't think I built in enough. And they didn't seem to think there was enough time between sessions. So you can see here, some of them went back to back, and it was a bit of an overload because they're students. They just couldn't cope with that much information. So in the next round, when we build our next timetable, I shall be thinking a little bit more about breaks in between so they can digest what they've taken in, and some of the more techie stuff, it just goes over their head. They're not really interested. They just want to know about the process of finance, how much they're going to get paid. So one of the things I did was in one of my sessions, the sort of orientation was I did some slides on how much you get paid, because they had no idea what the agenda for change was or the scales. So I showed them how much each level got, even the ESM ones and etc. They had no idea. They were really switched on to this. They were like, "Oh, that's real money." I think they thought that the NHS wouldn't pay very well in finance, but actually they're good salaries. You know, they are. So share that, promote it. I told them about the pension, obviously not really interested in the pension, but then things like the salary sacrifice for the cars that you can get. That was a real winner as well. So things like that they're really interested in, just promote it. Sorry, Jane, I'm overrunning a bit, aren't I? It doesn't matter. I've got a little bit of time. So what we learned, they come in at the last minute. It takes time for them to find their voice. They didn't actually ask any questions really until about 3:30 on the first day. So I think just giving them a slow start and not putting too much on day one is good advice. One of our colleagues walked them to Tesco's on day one and heard them all say, "Oh yeah, we want to be investment bankers." They all wanted to be investment bankers because they thought they'd get paid a lot of money. Didn't realise they'll all be dead by 40. But anyway, by the end of the week, they really did want information on careers in NHS finance. So there are many ways in, and we did talk to them about this with the Insights programme, with the apprenticeships. They didn't have to go to uni. One of the individuals was definitely interested in that route in, and two of them were definitely going to uni. So it's a real mixed bag, but very, very worthwhile. NHS finance is complicated. You probably don't remember that, but it really is. Again, don't overload the timetable. They want to complete assignments. They want to feel like they've actually worked. So that was a lesson for me. So we'll be creating work for them to contribute to, even though it won't be on a live system, but they won't know that potentially. NHS pay and benefits. Get some execs in. They absolutely love to grill them. Do it later in the week, Wednesday, Thursday. Zoe had a literally grilling for 90 minutes about her. How did she get there? What did she do? How, what would she have done differently? She came out there exhausted, but she said it was so interesting to hear their take on, they had no compunction about, well, what's your next move? What you're going to do next? And, how long, one of them was, how long did it take you to get to that role? And, what could you do differently to speed it up? They were brilliant, absolutely brilliant in grilling her, and she absolutely loved it. We managed to get the director of workforce in as well, which they really enjoyed. So that was good. So getting some senior people in made them feel good, I think. Personal stories, career journeys. So Jason Donovan, you might know, he's amazing. He's such a good person to talk to, and he really talked through his career, which was different to Zoe's. So it's just hearing different people's routes into finance. Jasmine came along, who was a graduate trainee. That was an interest to them as well. Make sure they have enough time for lunch, the students. I gave them a task. So I decided that on day one, I was going to tell them, at the end of the week, you're going to present back what you've learned this week. And they were a bit taken aback, I think. And I don't think they've done a lot of presenting. And I need to factor in more time for them to do that. But actually, they really relished the challenge. They asked us to video it so they could use it going into their school year, show their teachers. So that was a really good thing to give them a challenge, I think. And as I say, by the end of it, they were absolutely, really, really genuinely interested in NHS finance as a career. So it was worthwhile for us to grow our own and potentially bring in people through the Insights or the apprenticeship routes. So that was our experience. And we're doing it again. So this is the feedback. I won't go through it because we're already running over, but it was really positive, and I got some really constructive advice on the next round, which is going to be the 1st to the 5th of July for this year. And I will ask them to come back. They said they'd like to come back and talk to the new students, so they will be coming back. But thank you. Thank you for listening. Oh, and there they are. Brilliant.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Lorraine. That was, if people weren't enthusiastic about this before they heard you speak, I'm sure they are now. And yeah, I was lucky enough to go along for an afternoon to help them, and Lorraine got me doing psychometric tests with them, and I had to do them myself. It was yeah, that was all quite stressful, but no, it was great actually, and they were really good. The questions were absolutely amazing. But yeah, we are running slightly behind what we said. So just really quickly, because it's important and people get a chance to ask questions of Lorraine. If you want to get started, there's a quick kind of how to here. Basically, East of England NHS is signed up to be part of the programme. So that's absolutely fine. We've done that bit for you. It's basically, as Lorraine said, you just need to decide your work experience week, think about how it fits with the timetable. July is, I've got a daughter this age, July is a really good time, sort of after the exams, before the end of term, sort of activities week, etc. And think about your application, effectively work back. When do you need people to apply so that you can look at their applications in order to get it sorted for then? And then I can do the stuff. We can put it on the Academy website. I can link you up with sort out the advertising through Access Accountancy, etc. So there is support, but as Lorraine said, it does take a bit of work. So it's kind of something to be thinking about. It's still possible to do it for July this year, but if you've not really started yet, you might really be wanting to prepare for a session either at a different point in the year or for next summer. So that's kind of it. We've put mine and Lorraine's contact details on the end of the pack that we'll send around to everybody who's interested. But before Lorraine has to leave us, just anybody got any questions for her? And as I said at the beginning, hard questions are good, as long as they're not for me. Brilliant. Lauren, go for it.
Hi, Lauren.
Hi, that was great. Thank you. I know a lot more about it now. We actually had a workplace student last summer, and he organised it off his own back. He approached us to sort of do, so we did have him for a week. And I would wonder if we could have, because you mentioned you had 3 all in one go. I don't know if we could, how big is your team? And was it, can't say was it easier, but having 3 together, they can support one another compared to just one.
Definitely easier to have more than one.
Okay.
I originally wanted 6. Now, having had 3, I think between 4 and 5 might be the best, actually. Because otherwise it'd be like herding cats. Plus, you'd need a bit of IT space for them, etc., etc. So I 3 actually work really well. 4 I think would be ideal, but it is helpful for them to have that peer support, I'd say, for sure.
And sorry, can I just add one more question?
Yeah.
So you mentioned you emailed schools directly. Is it up to us to go and find the students really, and then say you should apply through this route, and then you can come and do work experience with us? Or do we just have to put it out there and wait for somebody to come along?
So I would do both if it were me. So I went through the local authority to find school contacts, and they were helpful to do that. So they did some introductions if you do it in your area. Or if you look on websites for schools in your area, there's usually a careers lead, or you can just go straight to the governor's to the office, and they'll redirect your email with the flyer and the link, etc., etc. I did both of those things. So just promoting it, and also don't forget your staff will have students as well. So make sure you promote it internally, because there might be somebody who's 16-year-old is interested in numbers, finance. They don't know what it is as a job, but they're really good at maths and they think they might want to use it. It might be something that they want to come and do as well.
Yeah, and just to add to
Thanks.
that, Lauren, I've now got, because of the Insights programme, I've now got a database of all the schools and which ones have got high proportions of school free school meals, etc. So I can help a little bit with finding the schools. And also, as Lorraine said, each local authority's got a kind of careers service. I know a lot about the Cambridgeshire one because I've been working with them, and they're quite helpful as well in terms of giving you contacts. So, but actually, you only really need to find a couple of schools that are close by, really, and then the rest you can kind of do through social media. Daryl, I think you're next.
That was really helpful, Lorraine. Thanks for that. It was just, I guess, a couple of comments. Firstly, if people, because there is a lot of paperwork associated with this particular route, and we've developed a 3-day training program because we were conscious that we did wear them out over 3 days, and that was on the back of students contacting us directly. So that's what we're having a lot at the moment, and I've just got 2 that are going to come in and spend half a day online with me in the next couple of weeks. So that might be a way of testing the water, and seeing
would you
how
share
things...
your 3-day program as well?
Yeah, obviously it's wider. We're doing finance, BI and procurement and clinical coding, so I guess we tire them out even more by giving them a really wide perspective of career choice. And again, we had 1 that was a consultant's son and 2 that had just still, I guess the schools had just said right into these people and asked for work experience. So the other thing, Lauren, you might want to check out is our HR team. They have contacts into the local schools. You may have somebody in your HR team that has that role. It's worth checking.
Yeah, it's a really good point, Daryl. Actually, a lot of organisations do have someone who they're called various different things. They might be like a liaison officer, but they're usually part of HR, or someone lives on apprenticeships or something like that. They'll have a lot of contacts already, so that's a good idea. If not, the NNN have got some really good links for Norwich. And Sarah.
Thank you. That was really good, Lorraine. Thank you for that. I've got a couple of questions, if I may. It's just on that application form that Lauren and Daryl were just talking about. Is it a specific application form, or did you have to use your own organisational sort of recruitment processes?
I think we just made it up, didn't we, Jane? Or we used one that Law's team had previously used and tweaked it for our own, put our own logo on it, etc. But your HR, I looked on the hub for the NHS England first to see what there was for work experience, just to see if there was anything there. We just took everything that we had to use and then tweaked it to make it simple. So having the teacher's contact details, I think, is really important, because if they don't turn up or something goes awry, then you've got someone to contact. So it's that sort of thing, and then teasing out of them why they want to do it. And it's not just a tick box exercise. I mean, it could be, but generally it's because they're going to study maths, or they are studying maths in sixth form or economics, etc. So yeah, just teasing it out really, and then just the formality of having their guardians' approvals.
Yeah, so it's quite
I can share the forms.
I was going to say it's quite a simple form for them to fill in. I mean, there's kind of contacty detaily bits, but they actually only have to fill in about 3 boxes about what they're doing, because at the end of the day, it's work experience rather than a job. But it's I can't talk. We had no idea whether we're going to get loads of applications and need to have some way of determining between them. Obviously we didn't. I think that was particularly because November wasn't a particularly popular time. But it doesn't need to be anything really complicated, and yeah, we just updated it to put the criteria on the bottom, because that's one thing we didn't really do last year, did we, Lorraine?
Learning as we go.
So yeah, but yeah, absolutely. I could when I send around the copies of slides, I'll send the one that we just worked on for this year, in case it's useful for anybody.
Yeah. Thank you, Jane.
I suspect some of the forms are the Access Accountancy forms, so that because they want the level of consistency across all the organisations that are sort of buying into their brand, for want of a better word, I guess. So I know Law worked quite closely with Access Accountancy initially, and then obviously she's trying to spread it with everybody else. Yeah,
we just pinch with pride.
Yeah, definitely. And if you do decide to go ahead and you want help with any of that kind of stuff, then I'm more than happy to advertise it, to help try and pull forms together, that kind of thing, and and help organise some speakers if you want things during the week. So I'm really conscious that we've kind of run over what we said we were going to do, but thank you ever so much, everyone, for spending the time today. I do really appreciate it. We are going to make the recording available for people, because I really want people to see Lorraine's enthusiasm. You caught a bit of the Laura of the Laura.
I did catch it from Laura, yeah, definitely.
Excitement. So it was
But,
absolutely
thank you for having
brilliant.
me, and I'm going to go now. But thank you so much.
Well
Take
done,
care.
Lorraine. Brilliant.
Thank you.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye.